Hello, I am Pastor Anna Sorensen. It is my privilege to serve the congregation at French Creek Lutheran Church in Ettrick, Wisconsin. In addition to serving as pastor there, one of my ministry roles is that I am the convener of the Crosse Area Synod Task Force on re-entry into our church buildings. I'm making this video today to try to highlight for you the resources that are available to you as you make decisions about meeting in person or not in your church. And then I'm going to reflect a little bit on that decision-making process. I want to start by just mentioning that the task force for reentry into the church building has an awful lot of resources available for you. And if you go to the Synod website, which is lacrosseareasynod.org, you will see this. And this link right here, Returning to Church in Person, has an awful lot of resources for you. Some of them include a risk assessment guide for your church staff to use in conversation with their healthcare provider. And there's a list of questions for your church council leaders to consider before they make decisions about having in-person gatherings. There's all kinds of resources there, and Synod staff would be more than happy to point you to the ones that would be most helpful for you. So there's those kinds of resources. The resources I really want to highlight today, though, have to do with metrics. And what the metrics can say to us as we make decisions about whether or not or how to meet together in person. It's really hard to know right now which resources are trustworthy. And there's so many things out there that are designed to be misleading. Articles and websites that are designed to sow confusion and distrust in the midst of an election cycle. I want to share with you a couple of the resources that are trustworthy. Here's the big one. This is the Harvard Global Health Institute. And we're going to take a look at this one here. And I'm going to show you what you can do at this website. So when you make your way to globalepidemics.org, you will see a map. And on this map, you can find where you live and look at the risk level. I'm going to go here to Trempealeau County, which is where I live. And if you scroll over it, it'll pop up a risk assessment overview for you. So according to the Harvard Global Health Institute, Trempealeau County has a risk level of red. We have a daily case rate on a 7-day rolling average of 44.8 and an average new daily cases on a 7-day rolling average of 13.3. It also shows you how many in total and how many deaths. You can see that this was last updated on the 22nd. So I imagine they'll get today's or yesterday's information in there soon. Then you can go down here, and here is the guide and the recommendations. COVID risk level red is what they call tipping point. They would recommend that in the red level, stay-at-home orders be issued. Well, that's not going to happen here in Wisconsin statewide, nor on the county level. So that means we can use this not for what are the policies going to be coming out of our local governments, but in our decision making. So according to the Harvard Global Health Institute, when you're in red, stay at home. All right, so that is one of the things that you can use as you're making a decision. When we're talking about this, I do want to make sure that you know that our bishop, Jim Ahrens, issued the following statement on September the 23rd. He said, quote, "It is not recommended to meet in person at all right now. If people must meet in person, it should be outside in small groups for under 30 minutes with masks, staying 6 feet apart. because being inside dramatically increases the risk of spreading the virus. And of course, ultimately, the decision about whether or not to gather at all, or if you gather, where and how long, belongs to whomever your church constitution grants that authority. In my context, that belongs to the church council, but the content of worship belongs to the pastor. A couple other resources that I want you to make sure that you are aware of. One is your state health department. I want to just show you, here is the Minnesota State Health Department website, all kinds of resources there. I'm really not familiar with this one because I utilize this one here, which is Wisconsin's, because I live in Wisconsin. There are so many resources here for you. I like this. If you need some signs to put up, you can. And here is the one that concerns us as we're thinking about church and worship services, faith-based organizations. Limiting the chances for physical contact in group settings has proven to be the most effective way to slow the spread of COVID-19. So instead of attending spiritual gatherings in person, you can safely view or listen to almost any form of spiritual service through television, radio, online video, live streaming, and podcasts. So there you have the recommendations from our state health department as well. Oh, I was going to give you the website for that. There it is. All right. So one last thing that I want to just reflect a little bit for you on decision-making in this time of pandemic in a church community. It is the recommendation of this Synod Task Force on Reentry into our church buildings that you follow the guidance of public health officials. In many of our congregations in the Crosse Area Synod and many others, there are a high percentage of us who are vulnerable to serious complications from COVID. But in addition to that, many of us work in places with clients who are vulnerable. Some of our congregations have staff members who are at higher risk level. So one of the things we consider as Christians is how to care for the sick and the vulnerable in our communities, our neighborhoods, our families. And that consideration says, don't meet. But at the same time, we have to consider the spiritual needs of the congregation and the community. We do have the option of online, virtual services, videos, podcasts, radio broadcasts, and Zoom. And I think there are other creative ways that your pastors are working very hard to bring you spiritual support and comfort in this time. If your congregation does decide to meet in person, that is what your community needs, I urge you to utilize all of the risk reduction measures available to us. The things like using fresh air, outdoors if at all possible, masks, physical distancing, refraining from singing, a limited time frame, and little or no group speaking. This is a really challenging time, but you don't need me to tell you that. In the midst of pandemic, we need spiritual support as much as, if not more than ever. And we really, really want things to go back to the way they were. I know that your pastors and your congregation leaders are making difficult decisions. If you do not like the decisions that your congregation has made, please understand this. Your leaders are doing the best they can in a difficult situation. Second, please support them. Don't speak ill of them publicly. Have a private conversation if you need to learn more about why they decided the way they did. I want you also to know this. Your pastor knows that there are congregations meeting in person. Yes, some of them in the building. Yes, some of them are singing. Yes, some of them have gone back to exactly how things were before the pandemic. It's really, really hard to choose to follow the recommendations of public health officials when others choose not to follow those recommendations, especially when we know that doing so is going to let down some people. But we do it because we love you and we love our communities and we want people to be well. In the midst of pandemic, continue to pray for one another. Utilize all the resources that are available to you. Pray for your pastor. Support them. But above all, even though everything seems like it's changing all the time, trust in God, whose love for us is ever constant. Okay, one more resource for you. This is very particular to your situation, but look at your county health department. They undoubtedly have a Facebook page and a website, and they have staff who would be glad to help you and give you guidance as you make difficult decisions. Thanks for your time and attention. I hope that these resources are helpful to you. Have a great day.